Hi everyone, welcome back to Ms. Bertazzoni's Reading Corner. Today we're going to read 3 more stories from Sideways Stories from the Wayside School by Louis Sachar. First story is a little strange, it's about Dana. The second story is about Ronde. It's a little stranger than the first story. And the third story about Sammy is the strangest one of all. Maybe that's why they're called Sideways Stories. Anyway. Here we have a picture of Dana. Let me see if I can get her in focus. There we go. So remember, upside down and backwards. There's Dana, and as you can see, she's kind of scratching herself, and she wears glasses. I've got my glasses on too. All right. Dana. Dana had 4 beautiful eyes. She wore glasses, but her eyes were so beautiful that the glasses only made her prettier. With 2 eyes, she was pretty. With 4 eyes, she was beautiful. With 6 eyes, she would have been even more beautiful. And if she had 100 eyes all over her face and her arms and her feet, why, she would have been the most beautiful creature in the world. But poor Dana wasn't covered from head to toe with beautiful eyes. She was covered with mosquito bites. Mrs. Jules picked up her yardstick and said, "Now it's time for arithmetic." "Oh, no, Mrs. Jules," said Dana. "I can't do arithmetic. I itch all over. I can't concentrate." "But we have all kinds of arithmetic," said Mrs. Jules. "Addition without carrying, addition with carrying, and carrying without addition." "I don't care," cried Dana. "We have that too," said Mrs. Jules. "Addition without carrying. Now stop carrying on." Dana whined. "I can't, Mrs. Jules. I itch too much." "And I'm too thirsty," said DJ. "I'm too tired," said Ron. "And I'm too hungry," said Terrence. Mrs. Jules hit her desk with her yardstick. Everybody stopped talking. Mrs. Jules said, "We are going to have arithmetic now, and I don't want to hear another thing about it." "But Mrs. Jules, I really do itch. I can't do arithmetic," Dana whined. "No," said Mrs. Jules. "Arithmetic is the best known cure for an itch. How many mosquito bites do you have?" "I don't know," said Dana. "Over 100. First I try scratching one, but then another one starts to itch, so I scratch that one, and then that one stops, and another one starts, so I scratch that one, and the itch moves down to another one. Then I go back to the first one. The itch just never stays in the same place. I just can't scratch them all. What you need is a good, strong dose of arithmetic," said Mrs. Jules. "I'd rather have calamine lotion," said Dana. "Remember, Dana," said Mrs. Jules, "mosquito bites itch, not numbers." "So what?" said Dana. Mrs. Jules continued, "We'll just have to turn your mosquito bites into numbers." "A mess," Dana moaned. Mrs. Jules began to turn the mosquito bites into numbers. "How many is 3 mosquito bites plus 3 mosquito bites?" she asked. Ronde raised her hand. 6 mosquito bites, she answered. "How much is 6 mosquito bites minus 2 mosquito bites?" asked Mrs. Jules. 4 mosquito bites, said DJ. "How much is 5 mosquito bites times 2? asked Mrs. Jules. 10 mosquito bites, said BB. "Very good," said Mrs. Jules. "I still itch," Dana complained. "I've got one more question," said Mrs. Jules. "How much is 49 mosquito bites plus 75 mosquito bites?" Nobody raised a hand. "Think, class," said Mrs. Jules. "This is for Dana." Nobody knew the answer. Dana's itch began to get worse and worse. At last, Dana began counting her own mosquito bites. She counted 75 on one side and 49 on the other. Then she added them together for a total of 124 mosquito bites. 124 mosquito bites, Dana called. Very good, said Mrs. Jules. Dana had 124 mosquito bites, and none of them itched anymore. I'm still thirsty, said DJ. Can arithmetic do anything for that? I'm still tired, said Ron. And I'm still hungry, said Terence. I'm glad we turned my mosquito bites into numbers instead of letters, said Dana. I could never spell mosquito. All right. Now, our next story is about Ronde. And if you look closely at Ronde, you'll notice that she does not have her two front teeth. Ronde had 24. Nope, I read that wrong. Ronde had 22 beautiful teeth. Everyone else had 24. Ronde was missing her two front teeth, and those were the most beautiful teeth of all. Your front teeth are so cute, said Mrs. Jules. They make you look just adorable. But Mrs. Jules, said Ronde, I don't have any front teeth. I know, said Mrs. Jules. That's what makes them so cute. Ronde didn't understand. Oh, Ronde, I just love your two front teeth, said Marisha. I wish I had some like that. But I don't have them, said Ronde. That's why I love them so much, said Marisha. Oh, this is silly, said Ronde. Everybody thinks the teeth I don't have are cute. I'm not wearing a coat. Don't you all just love my coat? And what about my third arm? I don't have one of those either. Isn't it lovely? Love your hat, Ronde, said Joy. I'm not wearing a hat, Ronde screamed. That's what makes it so interesting, said Joy. Don't you think so, Leslie? Oh, yes, said Leslie. It's a very nice hat. Nice boots, too. I'm not wearing boots, Ronde insisted. Yes, said Joy. Very nice boots. They go so well with your hat. What hat? Asked Ronde. Yes, Leslie agreed. Ronde showed excellent taste by not wearing the hat or the boots. They go so well together. Ronde had had enough. She covered her head so nobody could see her hat. She put her feet under her desk so nobody could see her boots. Then she closed her mouth tightly so nobody could see her two front teeth. Suddenly, everybody who was sitting near her began to laugh. What's so funny? Asked Todd. The joke Ronde didn't tell, said Jason. Ask Ronde not to tell it again, Todd, said Calvin. Ronde, said Todd, don't tell it again. Ronde was horrified. She didn't know what to do. She kept her mouth shut and just stared at Todd. To her amazement, Todd laughed. Hey, everybody, called Todd. Listen to Ronde's joke. Ronde didn't say a word, but the rest of the class began to laugh. Mrs. Jules got very angry. She wrote Ronde's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. The classroom is not the place for jokes, she said. But Mrs. Jules, said Ronde, I didn't tell a joke. Yes, I know, said Mrs. Jules, but the funniest jokes are the ones that remain untold. Okay, said Ronde. If that's what you want, then that's what you'll get. I'll really tell a joke. That way I won't disturb the class. And tomorrow I'll wear boots and a hat. Of course you won't like them as much as the ones I didn't wear today. But I'd better hurry up and tell my joke before you all start to laugh. There was a monkey sitting in a banana tree. He was very hungry. knew that somewhere in the tree there was a magic banana, and that once he ate that banana, he wouldn't be hungry anymore. He ate one banana. That wasn't it. He was still hungry. He ate another banana. That wasn't it either. He was still hungry. Finally, after he ate his 10th banana, he wasn't hungry anymore. I knew I'd find it, he said. It's too bad I didn't eat that one first. I wouldn't have had to waste all those other bananas. Nobody laughed. Nobody had even listened to Ronde. Mrs. Jules was busy teaching arithmetic, and everybody else was paying strict attention. Ronde slapped herself on the face to make sure she was really there. She was. The bell rang for recess. Ronde ran outside. She was very upset. Louis, the yard teacher, saw her. "Why the frown, Ronde?" he asked. "Come on, smile. Let me see your cute front teeth." Ronde screamed. She socked Louis in the stomach, then bit his arm with her missing teeth. And that kind of bite hurts the worst. Now remember, no biting, even if you are provoked. All right, the final story is about Sammy. And you'll notice that Sammy is a pair of eyes. Oops, let's see if we can get him better in focus. There's Sammy, holding his raincoat, wearing his raincoat, and holding his umbrella. Okay? All right. Sammy. It was a horrible, stinky, rainy day. Kind of like today, actually. Some rainy days are fun and exciting, but not this one. This one stunk. All the children were wet and wore smelly raincoats. The whole room smelled awful. "Ooh, it stinks in here," said Marisha. Everybody laughed, but she was right. There was one good thing, however. There was a new boy in class. New kids are always fun. Except no one could even tell what the new boy looked like. He was completely covered by his raincoat. "Class," said Mrs. Jules, "I'd like you all to meet Sammy. Let's show him what a nice class we can be." Leslie walked up and smiled at Sammy, but her smile quickly turned into a frown. "You smell terrible," she said. "Leslie!" exclaimed Mrs. Jules. "That's no way to greet a new member of our class." Mrs. Jules wrote Leslie's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. "But he does, Mrs. Jules," said Leslie. "He smells awful." "You're ugly," Sammy replied. "Now, Sammy, that's no way to talk," said Mrs. Jules. "Leslie's a very pretty girl." "She's ugly," said Sammy. Allison spoke up. "Well, you smell terrible and are probably even uglier, but nobody can see you again because you are hiding under that smelly old raincoat." "That will be enough of that," said Mrs. Jules. "Now, Sammy, why don't you take off your coat and hang it in the closet? Let's all see how nice you look." "I don't want to, you old windbag," said Sammy. "That's because he's so ugly," said Leslie. "I'm sure he's quite handsome," said Mrs. Jules. "He's just shy. Here, let me help you." Mrs. Jules took off Sammy's coat for him, but underneath it was still another raincoat, even dirtier and smellier than the first one. They still couldn't see his face. "Ooh, now he smells even worse," said Marisha. "You don't exactly smell like a rose either," Sammy replied. Mrs. Jules took off the second raincoat, but there was still another one under that, and the smell became so bad that Mrs. Jules had to run and stick her head out the window to get some fresh air. "You're all a bunch of pigs," Sammy screeched. "Dirty, rotten pigs." The smell was overpowering. Sammy just stood there, hidden under his raincoats. Mrs. Jules wrote Sammy's name under the word discipline. "Send him home on the kindergarten bus," said Joy. "Not with me," said Todd. Mrs. Jules held her nose, walked up to Sammy, and removed his raincoat. She threw it out the window. But he had on still another one. Sammy hissed, "Hey, old windbag, watch where you throw my good clothes." Mrs. Jules put a check next to Sammy's name on the blackboard. Then she took off another raincoat and threw it out the window. The smell got worse, for he had on still another one. Sammy began to laugh. His horrible laugh was even worse than his horrible voice. When Sammy first came into the room, he was 4 feet tall. But after Mrs. Jules removed 6 of his raincoats, he was only 3 feet tall, and there were still more raincoats to go. Mrs. Jules circled his name and removed another coat. She threw it out the window. Then she put a triangle around the circle and threw another one of his coats outside. She kept doing this until Sammy was only 1.5 feet high. With every coat she took off, Sammy's laugh got louder and the smell got worse. Some of the children held their ears. Others could only hold one ear because they were holding their nose with their other hand. It was hard to say which was worse, the laugh or the smell. Sammy stopped laughing and said, "Hey, old windbag, if you take off one more of my coats and throw it out the window, I'll bite your head off." "They smell too bad for me to allow them in my classroom," said Mrs. Jules. "You can pick them up when you leave." "They smell better than you do, pighead," Sammy shouted. Mrs. Jules didn't stop. She took off another one of his coats, then another and another. Sammy was only 4 inches tall, 3 inches tall, 2 inches tall. At last, she removed the final coat. And all that was there was a dead rat. "Well, I don't allow dead rats in my classroom," said Mrs. Jules. She picked it up by the tail, put it in a plastic bag, and threw it away. Mrs. Jules didn't allow dead rats in her class. Todd once brought in a dead rat for show and tell, and Mrs. Jules made him throw that one away, too. "I'm glad Sammy isn't allowed in our classroom," said Ronde. "I didn't like him very much." "Yes," said Mrs. Jules, "we caught another one." Dead rats were always trying to sneak into Mrs. Jules' classroom. This was the 3rd one she'd caught since September. Okay, that's it for this time. And here, if we look closely, is a picture. Let's see, can we focus? Sort of. There is Sammy. There's a color picture of Sammy as opposed to a black and white one. Okay, you all have a good couple of days. I will be recording another video for you. Stay healthy and safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.